friendly environment today, so please be careful walking around, and we hope you brought your hay fever tablets with you today. Fantastic venue. Thanks to Gayleen and Martin for the use of the venue today. Really pleased to have. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're just about to kick off our safety summit, but just a few administrative announcements. Most people probably found the toilets, which are out to my right, about a 50-metre walk down there. We've got a very OH&S friendly environment today, so please be careful walking around, and we hope you brought your hay fever tablets with you today. Okay. We just had 2 speakers running. There you go. We've sorted that out. Excellent. Phew. Not 2 Michaels. No, you don't want 2 Michaels. Michael Linky, Chief Executive. I'm going to hand over to Mick Monk now, who's going to introduce our speakers and give you a little bit of background about our Safety Summit. Mick?
Thanks, Michael. It's ironic that we've got all these things to step over at a safety forum. I think most of you will be aware that over the last couple of years we've put a big push on safety. We want to look after you guys, we want to help you guys improve safety and come home to family, friends and whatnot. That's certainly paid dividends. We've got Katie working hard, she'll be presenting today. and we've really earned the respect of a lot of our external stakeholders, the regulator, the ATSB, Air Services, etc. So it's good to see a good turnout like this. Today, I'd like to introduce Greg Hood. Greg Hood is the Commissioner for the ATSB. I believe it's somewhat of a homecoming for Greg. He was just telling me that he did his first solo in an hour, or did your entire certificate? I'm not sure. Something like that, in the sports star that's running around outside as we speak. So on that note, I'll hand over to Greg. Thanks, Greg, for coming along, and thanks for your support and your help.
Thanks, Michael. You can change it if you like. I'll just ask you. So, firstly, thanks very much. So, my job is the Chief Commissioner of the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, and I'm delighted to open a safety conference at any time, anywhere. I am a glider pilot, I'm a GA pilot, and I'm a recreational pilot. And I did my recreational licence here in the Sports Star, and I also did my aerobatic endorsement here with Martin, and I did my formation endorsement here at Aldinga. Ironically enough, I'm also a South Australian, and in 1977, when I was in my last year at high school, I did my first lesson here with the Eastwoods, and it was $85 an hour for a lesson in a 172 in 1977, and it was too expensive for me to continue at that stage. But no, it's great to come to Aldinga, and it's great to be back in South Australia. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ATSB shortly, and then a little bit about our interaction with RA-Aus. But some of the things that we've got running at the moment, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, is I'm accountable for the search for MH370. So just a part-time job. Also, at the moment, of course, we've got a variety of investigations, some of which you might be aware of, some of which you might not. In the ATSB, it's not the Aviation Transport Safety Bureau, like the old BASI, we're the Australian Transport Safety Bureau. So the ATSB also does rail and marine investigations. So a couple of the more interesting rail ones we've just published, for example, is the freight train that was blown over by microburst across the Nullarbor. So you can see the parallels between the dangers of thunderstorm in rail and in aviation. Another interesting one for me was just on a month ago now, a Singaporean tanker entered the heads at Port Phillip Bay, turned right to go down the channel, and an ageing solenoid in the steering mechanism failed, and the tanker ran aground. So the ATSB is investigating why. The tanker was full of sulfuric acid, and you can just imagine what might have transpired had the hull been breached. So it's a pretty interesting job, and I'm very happy to be here. I'll just go to the next slide if I can, please. So we're established under the Transport Safety Investigations Act 2003, and our sole function really is to improve transport safety, and there's a provision in the Act that say we're not allowed to blame anybody. So in fact, if you read our investigations, and there's a whole lot at the back table there, ours is about no blame. Thanks. We just talked about that one, so we'll keep going because I've only got 12 minutes, I've been told, and I have to stay on track. Some people think of the government bureaucracy. Anyone want to hazard a guess of how many thousands of people work for the ATSB doing aviation, rail and marine investigations? 103 people. So we're an independent statutory authority. We're very lean, and that means that we don't investigate everything. We investigate those incidents and accidents where there is the potential to improve transport safety. Technically, because I'm an independent statutory authority, the Minister is not supposed to be able to tell me what to do. So it's kind of a nice position. It's the first job I've had in my life where I haven't got a boss. The downside, of course, is that I'm relied upon the Minister for funding. So I've sort of got to be nice to him. Our Minister's a National Party Minister, a guy called Darren Chester, and he lives in Gippsland, and he actually commutes when he comes to Parliament, so his charter pilot took him home last night to Bairnsdale. So we'll just go to the next one, thank you. So effective safety investigation from our perspective requires open and honest reporting, protection of information received, independent investigation, respect for privacy, public release of information or transparency, consideration of organisational and systemic factors, including factors such as regulatory oversight, and no attribution of blame or liability. So that's the premise upon which we work. Thanks, Katie. So I'll put some quiz questions on the board. The stats on the Bureau of Transport and Regional Economics site only has up to 2014 currently. Anyone want to hazard a guess in terms of transport modalities, where the fatalities in 2014 lay? 1,153 people killed on the road. That's correct. 4 in rail, that's correct. And the next 4? Marine. And we lost 28 people in 2014 in aviation. So that gives you some kind of a comparison, if you like. These are relatively, when you look at the population of Australia, relatively small numbers. A couple of the stats you may not realise here, and we don't investigate, is the rail fatalities in terms of what's reported to the ATSB is suicide. And approximately one person a day around Australia throws themselves off a train platform in front of a moving train. Last week, a young 19-year-old girl in Victoria calmly walked to the middle of the tracks and knelt to face the oncoming train. So that's a stat you don't hear much about, but it's also one that we're pretty concerned about in aviation. You will have heard about Silk Air, the pilot suicide several years ago. There's lots of question marks, and we because we haven't got the cockpit or voice recorder or the flight data recorder from MH370, we don't know, but there has been several instances of suicide, murder-suicide in aviation. And we're particularly interested, we've had a commercial pilot only a few weeks ago hire an aircraft from Lismore, go 5 miles off Byron Bay and point the aeroplane into the sea. So it's an issue in which, from our perspective, we're interested. We're interested in doing some further research, and it's very important that we look out for each other in this space. Thanks for that. Just here we have a graph of the accident rate for recreational aircraft operations per million hours flown. So the blue line is the accidents per million hours flown since 2006, and the red line at the bottom is fatal accidents per million hours since 2006. So there's goods and bads in this graph. The goods for me are that, and thanks to the team at RA-Aus, we're starting to see a fantastic reporting culture. And if you haven't got one, please take one of these. ATSB is a no-blame organisation, and we want to know about your accidents. I'm happy to stick my hand up and tell you about my 2 accidents in my aircraft, my BD4, both at Caboolture, where first time I taxied into a ditch and had a prop strike, and the second time I was always worried about the nose wheel in my aeroplane, because I don't know if those that know the BD4 design, but it's a dicky little thing, if I can use that expression, and I always worry when I'm in rough terrain. I had a full load of fuel, so I thought I'll go right back into the beginning of the runway, and it was pretty rough there, and I'm thinking, the nose wheel, it's not that good, and I've got full power on, and I elected to try and get airborne too quick. And of course, a full load of fuel and a German tourist, taking for a joy flight around Fraser Island. And anyway, I don't know if you've ever got airborne before you had a safe speed, but it's not very pleasant. The airplane was all over the shop, and anyway, I low-level stalled the airplane back onto the nose wheel and collapsed it once again. So we all do have accidents. I'm sure if you troll through the ATSB website and look for X-ray Bravo Delta, you'll find that at the time I reported both of my mishaps. So it's very important, particularly from the ATSB's perspective, where we're trying to move from being a reactive investigator to a predictive investigator. So at the moment we have one of the largest and richest sets of aviation data in the world, and that's all going to be telling me something. That's all telling me where the next accident is going to be. And so I'm really keen to get as much data as we can in that data set, because that data set will then be analysed and it'll tell me where I should encourage people to place their resources. One of the interesting changes recently to the data set is encounters with, we'll call them drones. We call them a remotely piloted aircraft. And if you go back 5 years, well, I think we had 1. 4 years we had 3. 3 years we had about 5. The last 2 years we're getting several encounters between Qantas and Virgin and international aircraft and drones per day. Why do we call them encounters? Because, in fact, I thought I saw one today actually coming into Adelaide Airport this morning, but I wouldn't swear by it because, of course, that's as quick as you see it. So if somebody's got one of those quadcopters and you can buy them for $99.95 at Aldi Shopping Centre, you might only see it for a brief second when you're doing 300 knots on descent in your 737. So what we've seen the last 2 years is a significant increase in encounters between regular public transport aircraft and drones. So if I was to hazard a guess, I would say it's inevitable that in the not too distant future we are going to have a regular public transport aircraft and a drone have some kind of closer encounter than that. So what's the difference with that and a bird? So last year there was 1,755 animal strikes. 97% were birds, and there was the odd kangaroo, a wombat, and a variety of other... Oh, a dog was hit, I think, on one airfield. So 97% of animal strikes are birds. And at the moment we're doing some research, our researchers are doing some research on what the consequence might be of various weights and sizes of drones if it were to collide with an RPT jet. And of course it could impact the undercarriage, it could impact the wing, the tail, the windscreen, or in fact the power plant. So it could be ingested if it was a jet engine, or it could be impacted severely if it was a prop. So we're doing some research in that space. So accident rates by operation type over 2005 to 13. As you can see on the left-hand side there, and it's a very comforting stat for those people that fly regularly in the RPT space, regular public transport, and in the low-cap RPT, and even in the charter section there, the black bar graphs are the accidents per million hours, and the red are the fatals. And if you have a look at the spikes, they're obviously aerial agricultural. Has a significantly higher accidents per million hours. The next is private business sport, and on the right hand side there is recreational aircraft. So that's why the ATSB is applauding the action of RA-Aus in having the safety conference today. Thanks. That just gives you some idea where the accidents are. The red ones are the fatals, and the blue ones are the non-fatals. The triangles, I can't read. Anyway, that'll give you some idea of the accident scenario. Sorry? Not investigated. Mostly in the lower end of town, from a resource point of view, we don't investigate, but we can. So we had a fatality at Yarram in the Jabberoo about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the ATSB chose to investigate that one in conjunction with RA-Aus. Thanks for that. Working together. So in terms of, we may investigate fatal accidents or we may not. We continue to provide advice and support to RA-Aus, including enlisting people on our training courses. So we've got human factors courses, we've got bloodborne pathogen courses, critical incident stress courses. So we have a number of courses run by the ATSB, and we've made the invitation to RA-Aus to continue to host those for those participants that would like to join us. I think that's about it. So I have left a whole bunch of publications at the back, and I once again congratulate RA-Aus on conducting the safety conference, and thank you for inviting me to open the event.
Thank you, Greg. A fantastic presentation and introduction to this safety summit. I'd now like to introduce Katie Jenkins, our National Safety Compliance and Risk Manager, who's really driving the change internally at RA-Aus, and you'll see the changes that she's driving and how they align with the work that the ATSB is doing and the natural synergies that we're starting to get to improve safety across the sector that we operate in. So give a warm welcome to Katie Jenkins.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Greg, for being here. I think it just sort of reinforces how important safety is for our organisation to have the ATSB Chief Commissioner here. So National Safety Month, this is our first safety summit. We held 2 forums at OzCosh last weekend in Narromine, and it was basically a lot of the information we shared in those forums is what we'll be sharing with our greater audience online as well as the people here today. So what is a safety summit? It's one of our National Safety Month initiatives. And the reason we've come up with National Safety Month, there's various kind of reasons, and I want to take you back to 2015 because there was a catalyst point within our office in 2015. Between the period of April through to June, we were attending fatal accidents every fortnight. And it came a point mid-June where we sat down as a management team and we sat there and we discussed what is going on. We have got to stop reacting to these accidents and we need to be more proactive. At that time, we went back and we realised there were a few issues we had within the organisation, and one was the fact that we really didn't talk about things. An accident happened, everyone was speculating what would happen, but there was no information coming out to our members, and the lessons learnt were being lost from these tragic events. So we reviewed a few things. Jill Bailey wrote a fantastic article in the July Sport Pilot magazine, and we revisited the 49 fatalities we had over the last 5 years. And it had a huge impact on where we were going, where we were focusing on, and what were the key areas that were the problem from these fatal accidents. And as you can see, 87% of these accidents were due to human factor related causal factors. So we thought we need to go back and revisit our training and what we were doing and the safety education we were giving to our members. We also needed to raise awareness in various ways. And also, during that time, we went back and we looked at a lot of statistics and we pulled the information together. And it was probably the first time with all the data that we had that we sat down and we looked at the information. We were trying to figure out what the problem was. About April last year, we collected all our fatals over the last 5 years, and we realised, and we did a forecast, and we realised if we kept continuing along this track, we were looking at 3 to 4 fatalities a quarter. And that had a huge impact on us. We had to make a difference. So we thought the first thing we needed to do was get the conversation started again, and that was through our articles. We'd also stop talking, and we'd also stop being transparent with our reporting that you guys were putting into us. So we needed to make sure that the information you were giving us was more transparent back to our greater membership. And a lot of the modernisation that we did in the office with our website, our new occurrence management system and our member portal all tied into that. And that's been created to create greater transparency with these accidents and incidents, because at the end of the day, the education you get from those accidents is extremely important to you, the member. We also needed to build trust. We were finding that people were afraid to report, they were afraid of punitive action, and they were also afraid of the consequences, the big bag of stick, and we were at the end of the day trying to educate and train. So we looked at a few things, and one of the things we looked at was our reporting policy, and we didn't have one. So we sat down and we thought about a philosophy. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Michael because he's going to talk about our open and fair reporting philosophy.
Thanks, Katie. I'll just give you a minute to have a look at the policy up on the screen. It's been on our website since October last year, and it mirrors everything that Greg said. So we'll just have a quick look at that. The centrepiece of this is around that open and fair and that as Greg called it, no blame culture. We use the language open and fair, exactly the same. That you're not trying to assign fault to somebody. You're asking people to report to you so that you can use that lesson or use that incident to then train and educate others. Lessons learned, we call them. It's not a blot on your copybook. It's not something that's going to carry with you for the rest of your aviation career. At the end of the day, the name is irrelevant to me. It's irrelevant to RA-Aus. What's important is that data comes in. And if somebody reports, if Eugene here tells me that he's had a tyre blowout in Tasmania, and then Barry Windle tells me that he's had a tyre blowout in South Australia, that data comes into us and we start to look at that and we could say, well, hang on a sec, these tyres are from the same batch. We can start to do some advice or some guidance into the tyre manufacturers, or it might be an airfield problem. And Katie's got a couple other examples that she's going to take you through, but the key thing that we're trying to shift and encourage is to get people reporting. But we needed to make a decision as an organisation from the top down, because often people said to us, well, there's no point reporting because firstly you do nothing with it, and if you do something with it, you're probably going to ground me or kick me out of the organisation. That hasn't happened in my time at RA-Aus. I think one member we've asked to leave the organisation in my time, and we've had over 300 incidents reported, and I don't know how many instances we have had not reported. And to me, if you don't report, if you have an occurrence in your aircraft and you don't report it to us, to me that's a theft from every other member. So you're stealing the opportunity from everybody else in the organisation of the ability to learn from that mistake. You know, we all know about Matt Hall and what happened there. That was broadcast on live television. We saw it. But he willingly and openly talks about it and tells people. Hasn't affected his career. Hasn't stopped him earning, thousands of dollars as a show pilot. So let's tell people. Let's get this information in. The more information we have, the more predictive that we can come as an organisation. Again, exactly what the ATSB is trying to do. We want to stop the next accident happening. And you'll see later on in this presentation today, we're starting to predict where the problems are. And the team have put together some fantastic videos on that, and Katie will show them to you in a little while. But back to Katie.
Thanks, Michael. So one of the things we did was we engaged with some IT developers and we created an occurrence management system. And it may seem like it's just an online report to you, but it collects all the information that we need to predict what could happen in the future. So the importance of that management system is greatly going to affect the membership down the track, and we're already starting to see results after 12 months of its use. The other thing that happens with the occurrence management system, and I'm not sure if anyone's lodged a report in the room as yet, however, when you log into your member portal, we can now tell you what status that your report's up to. So if it's under investigation or it's being reviewed for a risk assessment, it actually has a status in your member portal. And we did that for greater transparency. Like Michael said, I was getting phone calls from members saying, where's my report at? Where is it up to? Now, sometimes it might take only a week to close off a report. It goes through a real complaint management or a investigation process, and we finalise it all with the output. So it might take a while. We find that with anything to do with an engine teardown can take months to get a report out of. And I've got one that's probably 9 months old, and it's been investigated by the ATSB, and they're still just trying to come up with a solution. Once we get that solution and those findings and that safety outcome, we will close off that report and give you the information. Has anyone looked at our website as yet under the safety tab? Under the safety tab, there is all the accidents, incidents and defects that we've had since the 21st of October last year. And we'll have a summary, and when it's closed off, we have an outcome. I can't tell you how many times we've had an engine failure and it's ended up being fuel starvation. So we're saying people are reporting this information in, but when you drill down to it, it might be a totally different outcome of what you're thinking. So rather than making assumptions about what these accidents are occurring for, we're actually drilling down, we're giving you that information. So if you're worried about an engine part or a part of your frame mechanically, we're actually saying to you, don't worry about it. It had something to do with human factors, and most of our incidents are actually human factor related. That transparency is a big thing. We're just trying to make sure that we're giving the information back to our members. The education and training that we get from these reports is vital, and it's all about learning. Like Michael said, we always look at Matt Hall. He's our hero for the organisation. He's actually one of our RA-Aus members, and he always talks about you never stop learning, and that's what we're trying to do, give back to our members in that way. The other big thing is one report. I'm not sure if anyone's lodged a report before the online reporting system, but we had 2 reports, one that went to the ATSB, one that came to us. As much as we had to data enter it, so did the ATSB. So we've worked very closely with the ATSB to make sure that's working, and we're hoping to automate that information in the new year, so they'll get an automatic download of that data, just to make things more efficient and make the way we manage these reports more efficient as well. We also realised that it was making sure the members are aware of how important it is to report. I'm not sure how many people have read the TSI Act before. It's quite difficult. So we thought about we needed to come up with new innovative ways of actually educating people. The trend analysis we're going to show you today that we're getting out of it is the education campaigns we are now giving you in National Safety Month, and they take a couple of months to develop. This year we've gone that one step further and we've made videos. And they're also highlighting areas of concern. So if we find that there's a trend out there, we're actually reporting it to senior management, through to the board, and we're highlighting areas that we probably need to revisit and monitor, and to make the organisation as safe as possible for our members. So the changes to reporting culture, we're trying to move from that reactive reporting to more proactive. So we're picking up those issues before they become an accident. And in the new year, we're going to start focusing very closely on our hazard reporting, and that's exactly that. You want to pick up the issue before it becomes an accident. And we're also educating on reporting requirements. With the rollout of the new operations manual this year, we created RA-Aus, Recreational Aviation Advisory Publications. Thanks, Jill. So what they're doing is they're breaking down the TSI Act. The one thing we found in the last 12 months, the terminology at a legislative level is very difficult to understand. I had a member recently say he called a Mayday and he cancelled it and he didn't report it. And he said, I didn't have an accident. We're saying in accordance with the TSI Act, you still need to report it. And unfortunately, there's probably about 60 to 70 items that you need to report. So what we've done is create these RA-Aus for you, so you can break it down and you realise that if you're involved in an incident on a runway, run into some sort of barrier or something like that, then you need to report it to us. And if you do not report it and we're aware of it, we'll send you a friendly reminder. And it's not supposed to be taken in a negative way, which sometimes I get a little bit of a fiery email back. It's actually supposed to be, hey guys, you got 72 hours to report it if it's a routine reportable matter. If it's an actual accident, you need to call the ATSB within 24 hours, and then after that, you need to put a written report in as well. So I think sometimes the message is in that way, and we're trying to make it as simple as possible. We'll also have RA-Aus out on our hazards and confidential complaints in the new year, just to break down what we're looking at when they get reported to us, and making our members understand the processes that we go through with those reports. Okay, so from the reporting, this is a bit of a standard thing that we're picking up, is that we're finding that there may be issues with people's training or consistency with their training, any improper tools or techniques they're using in maintenance. We've got our technical managers pursuing maintainers and saying, hey, we're teaching you the right way to use tools, don't take shortcuts. We're also finding that we do have outdated procedures and we need to revisit them, and we need to make them more modern and more up to date to the times that we've got and the aircraft that we've got. And also any non-standard practices we're trying to pull up before they become an accident. So the benefits of reporting is that we're picking out the trends that are occurring within our membership, and we're able to create these National Safety Month topics. And through that, we're going to give education and training back to our members. At the end of the day, I've got self-awareness up there. We're trying to give you the resources and information to make you self-aware of what the issues are within the membership, so you have an understanding, you're not going to make that mistake in the future. So how has our reporting changed? In the last 12 months since we've launched, and I'm going to do a birthday cake, I think, on the next Safety Quarter newsletter. We've actually had a 25% increase in our reporting in the last 12 months with this online reporting. And we've got the efficiency of the one report that covers both the ATSB and RA-Aus requirements. And I believe the biggest benefit that we've gotten out of this reporting is the transparency to our members. That transparency has meant that people are less likely to call me in the office and say, where's my report? What's happening with it? Or I quite regularly get, someone had an incident on the weekend, and I say, look up the website. If it isn't on there, you know it hasn't been reported. Then send me an email to say, hey, I'm aware of an incident on the weekend. But it's all the information is there for our members so that we can improve and be educated and learn from those lessons. The other thing we're doing differently with our reports is that we risk manage them. So like Michael said, for an example, is that if you do have a flat tyre on the runway, if I get one in, I'll go, okay, that's bad, but it's a low risk event within our organisation. Okay, I will log it, the data is there, the information is there for me to look up in the future. If I get 3 or 4, and like Michael said, we have the same batch, then I have a problem, and then I'll refer it to our technical managers and they'll go back to the manufacturer and have a chat. That's the kind of information we need to come in so that it can benefit from highlighting any safety issues that might become an accident in the future. And also, we're working towards the fact that with our serious accidents, we don't actually have TSI Act coverage, which is a big issue for us with our fatal and our serious accidents. It makes it very difficult for us to get timely information out to our members after these incidents so that you are aware of the fact that it's either technical, mechanical, technical, environmental or human factor related. So that's something we're working very closely with the ATSB. Michael and Mick have worked very closely with the Minister with, and we're hoping that we'll get some sort of protection somewhere down the track so we can get those lessons learned out in a more timely manner. So National Safety Month was also born as one of our initiatives, and it covers a whole range of things. Now, most of these initiatives are not from our office staff. I've received them from our members. CFIs have been fantastic and called me, and we've also tapped into people like Matt Hall, who's become an RA-Aus member in the last 12 months. We also created a Clear Mind, Clear Prop slogan, and you'll have a look around today. There's a whole heap of orange safety promotions, which has got the Clear Mind, Clear Prop. And the whole message that we've got with that logo, with National Safety Months, is human factor related. It's saying that you need to clear your mind and be clear of any distractions before you yell clear prop and start your engine. And that's the kind of message we're giving. So we have people that usually are fatigued before they go flying, or it may be that they've got a low blood sugar level. We've had a couple of instances where people weren't having brekkie before they're going flying in the morning, and just making those little mistakes at the end of the day. So that is the kind of message we're giving out with the Clear Mind, Clear Prop. We've also got our hangar talks. We've got the 3 different topics: runway loss of control, normalisation of deviance, and weight and balance. Now, these 3 topics came from our reporting. In the last 12 months, these 3 things are the ones that have stood out the most for us, especially runway loss of control, which has accounted for 60% of our operational related incidents. So we realised that we needed to educate and train holistically our members in that area. And that's why we've developed some of the education and training tools that we've got with our National Safety Month. Oh, has anyone picked up anything wrong on that slide? Nearly forgot it. I spelt hanger wrong. Yeah. I got pulled up on it last Saturday at Ozcosh. Made me feel very small. However, it was probably, I left it there because it's a good example that we all make a mistake. When I did this presentation, I was extremely fatigued. And as you all know, a spell check doesn't pick up a word like that. So I just wanted to highlight the fact everyone makes mistakes. Yes? We're going to go to that in a second, Don. Yeah. Okay, so other things you'll find for National Safety Month is that we have promotional stickers, Clear My Clear props branded all over them. We've put out lanyards this year, and we've also put a business card in your lanyard which has got the I am safe message, all human factor related. We're focusing on that 87%. We've also got a safety booklet mail out. Last year we put a safety insert into the magazine if you subscribed. We wanted to give our members something back, and this year, due to QBE giving us great sponsorship, we're able to mail that out to every member on our register. So in the next fortnight, you should receive your safety booklet, and it'll receive with a WAC ruler as well. So that's something that we're giving back to our members for Safety Month. We also have another initiative which came from one of our members, because we were they were asked the question, how do I refuel from a jerry can? And over the last 2.5 years, I think I've been asked that question 15 times. And I realised we needed a pool of information easily tapped into for our members. And so we created the idea of a knowledge base. What it does is it'll have topics and short fact sheets that we'll be able to attach articles to. It's actually live at present, so when you go into your member portal, so it's only available for our members, you can look up any information that's on there at the moment, and we'll be building on this. It's quite in an infant sort of state at the moment. However, if you have any ideas or articles or resources that you'd like us to put on there, we'll go back and we'll research and we'll put that information up for the greater membership. I think in the soft launch that we had last week with our National Safety Month launch, we've already had over 2,000 page hits. So even without announcing it for National Safety Month, it's getting a lot of hits at the moment. So this is something for our members. If you want to see information up there, you let us know and we'll create that information for you. So have a look at it when you get a chance, and especially if the people at home, if they're on our website at the moment, get them to have a look at our knowledge base. It's going to be a great source of information. It won't be focused purely on safety. We'll be branching out to ops and tech in the new year, and we'll have a greater source of information that's easily tapped into for our members. We've also changed the way that we communicate with safety. So in the past, we really only relied on Sport Pilot magazine, and those articles didn't have that targeted approach. So from now on, every month we have a sit and we have a think about what's the reoccurring trends in our data, and that's where your articles come from, our ops and techs team. We've also got a quarterly safety electronic newsletter. You'll see that, you've probably seen 2 already. That started in about March this year. And we'll be doing that every time we do a safety committee meeting as a management team. We sit down, and the first thing we do is we talk about the trends that have occurred in the reporting in the last 3 months. From that is the information we put out to our members. So again, we're targeting on those key problem areas, so everyone is greatly, it has a greater level of understanding with education as well. Like I said before, we've got the accident defect summary under the safety tab. Greater transparency of any outcomes of our accidents. Member portal, check your status if you've got an occurrence in there. If you find that it has been under investigation for a long time and you want to know some more information, just email safety@raa.asn.au. Okay, we will let you know what's happened with it, or we'll pursue it. And also we've got our safety booklet and the videos and learning management system, which we'll come to, is that we're now producing online learning. We've already rolled out our L1 training with it, and we'll also be doing more information. So that education through the LMS in the future will be used more often. So the next big question, and I'm going to hand back to Michael now, is has our strategy worked? So this is a lot of work we've put in the last 12 months. We're going to show you what we think is how well our strategy's worked.
Thanks, Katie. One of the things we wanted to do at RA-Aus, and the board is committed to this, and I'm committed to this, is being an evidence-based organisation. Don't make stuff up just for the sake of it. And when we do things like National Safety Month or lanyards, or talk about runway loss of control, it's, you know, we're measured and we think about it. So we go back and we review things. So I'll just get Katie to put the next slide up. Has the strategy worked? Difficult to see, but 8 years ago in 2008, we also commenced a conversation on human factors. And what the organisation did is produce the booklet and send it out, and went, oh great, tick, done that. Everybody's going to be safe now. We're not going to have any more fatalities. We've given all our members a booklet, and we've discharged our responsibilities as an organisation. That was in response to a significant number of fatalities in the year before, 15 fatalities in the year before. But once that book was released, fatalities continued to increase because nobody was continuing the conversation. It was, well, let's not talk about it. You know, we really don't want to talk about these fatalities that are happening in the organisation. Then we changed direction. Katie started the organisation, the board took a commitment to safety and said, no, we need a dedicated person in this role. We introduced Safety Month, we introduced another safety booklet, and this year, the next let of data that we add to this slide is this year's safety booklet and the downward pressure that we're continually putting on not only fatal accidents but serious accidents. I think we've had a 30 or 40% reduction in the number of accidents in the last 12 months, and we talk about that a little bit later in the AGM. So, has it worked? Statistically, yep, we'll tick that box. We think this strategy is working. Looking at some more data now, if we work from the ground up, has it worked? Well, yes, we're reporting fewer accidents. We're reporting fewer normalised accidents. We've got fewer members, similar amount of aircraft, but we're flying more hours. So we're putting some downward pressure on the number of accidents and the normalised number of accidents. Our members are starting to drift a little, and that's another conversation that we need to have. Similar aircraft, but some of the other metrics in the office, in terms of our modernisation, we're saving real resources organisationally, which is allowing us to invest in products like the safety promotions stuff that we're investing in. If we still had these additional staff on and we're still printing a lot of material, we're not going to be able to free up resources to allow us to focus on the safety, which is having significant impact and saving people's lives at the end of the day. So that's another. Yep, I think the project is working. Okay, now we're going to look at some more data, and we've been sitting for 30 or 40 minutes. We've got about 30 minutes to go before we wrap up, but let's everybody stand up for a minute and let's do a little exercise. Now, Eugene, are you less than 60? Yes. Anybody who's less than 60, sit down. That was easy for most of you. Okay, how many hours have you flown, Trevor? Less than 1,700 hours with RA-Aus? More? More than 17? You stand up. If you've flown less than 1,700 hours with RA-Aus or in your career, sit down. Now, Rod Bill, have you been a member of RA-Aus for less than 7 years? So you stand up. If you've been less than 7 years a member of RA-Aus, sit down. Okay, we've got a few people still standing in the room. When we've analysed the data and we've looked at the demographics of our organisation, those three stats are the three stats that suggest to us that that's the history of serious and fatal accidents. People who fall into this category, 60-year-old, 1,780 hours, and 8 years or less with RA-Aus. And that's human factor related, 87% human factor related. So that, to us, that's the predictive stuff that Greg Hood was talking about. We now know that group of people, and these are the people we want to communicate with. We want to communicate with the whole organisation, but it's our members having awareness that now all of a sudden they're in a risk category. You can sit down now. Thank you. But yeah, this is just, it's a risk category, and it's something that the data is telling us. So that's telling me that our strategy is working. We're starting to understand this. I think I'm back to Katie now. Next slide. Yep.
Yeah, so again, all this information will be in the safety booklet that's being mailed out to you. So we've given these statistics to you. They're also showing that we believe from all the safety promotions, education and training that we're providing, we're hoping that it's having an impact on our membership. And the statistics are showing that in the last 12 months, now this is only going, the 2016's part year goes to June this year. However, there's been a reduction when you normalise the information against our flying hours. So we've had a reduction in that number. So when I forecast this last quarter, I was looking at only 1. So that's a significant change from the 3 to 4 that we had in June last year when I looked at the last information. So this is something that will continue, and we'll keep doing the safety promotion, and we'll reevaluate it, because at a strategic level with our safety management system, which we're putting in place organisationally, the whole idea of safety promotions is to continually improve the safety within the membership and our organisation. And so this is something that we'll reevaluate. We'll reevaluate our videos, and that's where you as our members need to give us feedback and let us know if the information is working, whether you find it easy to understand. Are there different communication avenues that we need? So that's something that we need you to do. In regard to the safety of promotions material around you, the safety vest, has anyone seen the vest that we've got? The big high-vis vest that's got clear mine, clear prop on the back. That came from an idea from a CFI in Mudgee. The hanger talk idea, and these hanger talks that we're continuing is that we're trying to get people back down to the basics with their local CFI, talking about the information and safety related information on a regular basis. Big difference between our recreational organisation and say GFA or HGFA or even parachuting is they're club based. They're club-based, and we need to make sure that we have an avenue for our members who get their qualifications and their pilot certificate can come back and regroup, have a chat, have a conversation over a tea or coffee, and talk about any lessons learned from each other. So at the end of the day, we're constantly learning those messages. So that's the idea between our safety campaign. Some of the other information is trying to emphasise the occurrence management system again. Previously, manually, for the whole period of 2015, we had 286 reports. I think about maybe 40 of those were in the occurrence management system. However, in an 8-month period, we had 246 reports. And I can tell you today, only a week away from it being launched for a 12-month period, we've got over 300 reports. And whilst it's busy, we're actually getting more efficient in the way we do things. From the efficiency of the system, we actually got the reports that are open down to 14%. In the past, the manual way, we constantly had about 50% of reports open at any time, and it was really difficult because we were trying to get that information out there. So that's some of the positive outcomes we've got from this modernisation project. Just a couple of bit of information as well. It was interesting that Greg hit on it before with bird strikes. We had 6 bird strikes reported this year. 3 of them were reported within a 2-week period at Caboolture. We go back to the URSAs and we have a look and see if the information is current. So we went, whoa, we've got 3 in 2-week period. We'll check that URSA and make sure that information's there. It was there, but if we go to a different location, like for example, I've had a accident report, someone had a prop strike at a area up in Queensland and the airstrip hadn't been graded for months. They were about to have a fly-in in a 2-week period. This guy had taxied and he went within the barriered area and he actually had a prop strike in the barriered areas we're supposed to go in because the airstrip was so bad. He was concerned they were having a fly-in in 2 weeks and the council wouldn't do anything about it. I made a simple phone call to their council. I finally got through and they got the airfield graded before that fly-in. So that's some of the positives that we can get out of our reporting as well. So we're trying to give that benefit back to our members, and as an organisation, sometimes we have a bit more power than the individual on the ground because we've got that collective group of people to support us. So this is the message we're trying to give our members. So we believe safety is from education and communication. But if you're finding that we're not communicating appropriately to you, then we're not doing it right. So if you think there's a better avenue or a better way to do it, we need the feedback and the evaluation from you, our members. So the other thing we've got was the 3 topics from our hanger talks. And today, what we're going to do, I might give you, if you want to get up and have a walk around while we play these, they go for about 6 minutes each. These are like a teaser video. They go for 30 minutes in duration, and these are the hanger talks that our CFIs now have. They've all been posted them on a USB, and the whole idea is that you sit down, you watch the video, you sit down and have a chat about it afterwards. Have you been involved in any of these incidents? Are there avenues that you can learn? So we're going to play the first one. The first one's about normalization of deviance, and it sort of explains it in fine detail, normalization of deviance is. And then once we complete that, we'll have a break. So if you want to get up and have a bit of a stretch while the video is playing, please feel free. And once we set up the speaker, we'll play it.
Normalization of deviance. What is it? The gradual process through which unacceptable practice becomes acceptable. Have you done a fuel drain bop? Done that thousands of times. Never any water found. I don't need to bother anymore. As deviant behavior becomes acceptable, it becomes the norm. Mayday, mayday. Engine failure. Putting in a paddock. Probably should have done that fuel drain thingo. Eh, Bob? Finalize the flight plan yet, Phil? I don't need one. It always takes 50 liters to fly this route. We'll be right. As deviant behavior becomes acceptable, it becomes the norm. Mayday, mayday. Engine failure. Putting in a paddock. 50 liters are not enough in this headwind, eh, Phil? Don't normalize your deviance, eh, mate?
So
I'm Operations Manager Jill Bailey. And this presentation forms part of our hangar talks for our Safety Month initiative, trying to keep the conversation going with our members about safety, how everyone is responsible for safety. So I guess the first question would be, what is normalisation of deviance? We can see there from the definition that it's unacceptable practices of standards that become acceptable because someone's done something and there's been no catastrophic result. So how does that apply? It applies to pilots and it applies to technical maintainers. It could be as simple as the maintainer, picking that example, deciding not to use a calibrated tool to do the torque settings on a spark plugs because he doesn't buy fuel because he's done them hundreds of times. It's an accepted practice to use a tension wrench to do this, but most guys have got a lot of experience, so they believe they can get away without using a tension wrench. That is an example of normalisation of deviance. From a pilot's point of view, it'll be an action that they might do or perform in a plane, and they got away with it. So they believe that they can get away with it on a future occasion. So the phrase sounds very intimidating, normalisation of deviance, but what we're really doing is just talking about pilots or maintainers acting outside what would be the accepted practices. And normalisation of deviance can actually apply from the smallest member of an organisation, as in the pilot or the maintainer, through to corporations and companies as big as NASA. And there's actually a couple of really excellent examples on the NASA website talking about particularly Columbia, but even the Challenger disasters actually had normalisation of deviance as part of the factors for why accidents occurred. With Columbia particularly, there was an accepted fact that when the aircraft was in flight, at some stage during the flight, some of the insulation foam would come off and strike the aircraft somewhere. And unfortunately what happened with Columbia was it struck a particularly vital part of the shuttle and resulted in quite a disastrous explosion. So it's not just RA-Aus members, it can be corporations, it can be a school, it could be the airport, the maintainer, the instructors. It can apply to anybody, that we can all fall into this trap of normalisation of deviance. So here's some examples. This is a bit of a mind map. You can be on the left-hand side where you're mindful of the potential for normalisation of deviance, or you could be on the right side where you're actually participating in some sort of devious behaviour. One example over there says my CFI says I shouldn't do this, but I got away with it. I've actually seen examples where a young pilot was with his pilot certificate and decided to take some passengers, which he was entitled to do. But he decided to depart from a runway which is about 1.5 kilometres long. He decided to use a taxiway which was convenient to picking up his passengers, which meant he was using half the runway. In his mind, he justified it because the passengers were quite light, and he was quite light. The aircraft wasn't full of fuel, so therefore it didn't need as much runway. However, that's a perfect example of normalisation of deviance, because when he was trained, he would have been trained to backtrack and use the entire length of the runway. And in order to overcome that, the CFI went for a check flight with the young pilot and departed from that point, and obviously simulated an engine failure at about 100 feet above ground. And of course there was nowhere for the young pilot to go but into a paddock, which they didn't obviously continue the flight into the paddock, but the young pilot certainly got the understanding of why there are certain guidelines and procedures that we follow so that we don't end up normalising deviance. So in stricter sense, there's no rule there that's being broken, because there's no rule that says you have to use all the runway, but there's certainly a common sense approach, airmanship, if we use that relatively old-fashioned term now, that says if you've got runway behind you or altitude above you or fuel in the bowser, they're three of the most useless things in aviation. A couple of other examples, I've flown in clouds before and haven't had a problem. Well, RA-Aus pilots, as we know, are really trained for quite simple, relatively simple operations, which is day VFR. We're not trained to fly in clouds, and later on in this presentation we'll talk about those sorts of operations and the outcomes. There's a couple of other deviances there. It talks about I can fly at low level safely even if I haven't been trained. Well, there's a classic assumption that nothing's going to happen because all you're doing is...
So that's our
lower.
first normalisation of deviance. That's our first video that we've got for you. These videos will be rolled out in our hangar talks. We mainly want our people to go and visit your local CFI. If you don't have a CFI that's running it, go and hit them up for it. Let them know that you'd like to sit there and get together and have a chat about it. We've done it this way to make it easier to present. Also, if you can't make it to a hangar talk, we are making this available throughout October. We'll slowly roll it out and we'll make it available to our members online. So it'll be part of our YouTube channel, and it'll be very easy to access in your member portal when you log into it. So that's the first one on normalisation of deviance. Now I'm going to move to runway loss of control. And as I said before, this is one of our main areas of concern, not just in the landing phase, also in the takeoff phase we're finding. So we created a video on that as well. So again, this is just a short teaser just to let you know some information about it.
Welcome to this training presentation presented by Recreational Aviation Australia, looking at runway loss of control events. Here's some examples of events where aircraft have lost control in either the landing or takeoff phase of flight. Typical reports we get from pilots regarding these incidents are: a gust of wind got me, unexpected sink on final, the aircraft didn't respond to my inputs, or the wind suddenly dropped, the ground was soft, or the nose wheel collapsed as I landed. These are just some of the explanations that are provided into the seemingly mysterious acts that result in runway loss of control events, or as we sometimes say, losing it on landing, and sometimes on takeoff. Let's have a look at the real deal and see how this actually transpired to this young pilot as he lands his jamboree. Seemingly normal landing, lack of directional control, overcorrection, and we've just had a minor but recovered runway loss of control event. Here's another one. This sequence happened on the very next circuit. Poor directional control, trying to use ailerons, nose wheel not straight. Next thing, we're going gardening. So let's just have a look at a bit of a wrap up of the things that we've covered in the training video. Have a stabilised approach. Know how your controls change with lower airflow. Manage the aircraft with the correct control inputs. Don't try to rescue a bad landing. Go around. Understand the conditions and the effects that will have on the approach, and land on the main wheels only. Finally, be familiar with the aircraft type and practice and be current. Stay safe, have fun, continue to learn. Thanks for watching this training presentation from RA-Aus.
So again, the runway loss of control, like I said, 60% of our operational accidents. This is just a teaser video. The actual videos go for about 20 to 30 minutes long each. However, as you can see, some of the footage that we get, if you've got information and footage, we're trying to tell our members it's not something to be embarrassed about. We can learn, you can teach other people about where you've made mistakes, be that mature individual and let those lessons know. Be learnt in other areas. So any information or footage that you have that we can learn from, and we can get approval from the person who's involved in the video, we can use for further education down the track. So after this, we're going to move across to weight and balance. This is another area we've got concern with, and it basically covers off some of the technical issues. The technical manual has just been released recently as well, so it ties into that, and we'll be having further education and training in regard to weight and balance in the future. However, we found even when we attended Ozkosh the other week that we were looking at a few aircraft that might have had a few issues there and probably needed to go back and do some weight and balance on their aircraft again.
Hello, my name is Jared from the RA-Aus tech team, and I'm going to run you through this presentation on weight and balance, the weighing procedure. This is a brief look at the process, and more information can be obtained by completing the online weight and balance course. Have you ever wondered why the nose kept wanting to pitch up despite trimming it all the way forward? Ever just thrown baggage into the aircraft because you were running late and in a hurry, then wondered why the aircraft over-rotated on takeoff and gave you a fright? Well, that's not something you should wonder. You should have known that the aircraft was overloaded and that the centre of gravity position was most likely out of range. In these situations, the aircraft got off the ground and flew, but you were tempting fate and breaking the rules. What would happen if one day you put more in the aircraft than it could handle? If allowed to go too far out of bounds, it could result in serious damage to the aircraft, injury to persons on board, or even death. Weight and balance is an art worth mastering and practicing. Furthermore, the Finnish Department of Transport, TRAFI, identified a key risk in flying an ultralight aircraft is loss of control in flight during takeoff, approach, or landing. Contributing factors identified include problems in recognizing an imminent stall. Aircraft loading and center of gravity are also high risk factors in ultralight aviation. The principal safety risk in flying an overweight aircraft is that excess weight changes the flying properties of the aircraft, above all, increasing the stall speed. As the weight of the aircraft increases, the critical angle of attack at which flow separation occurs and the aircraft goes into a stall is attained at a higher speed than the stall speed of a lighter aircraft. The safety margin to the stall speed decreases when taking off, approaching, or landing with excess weight. These are the most critical phases of flight. At the moment, recreational aviators are not necessarily well informed about how excess weight changes the flight properties of their aircraft. Most stall practice is conducted in level flight at idle power. RA's aircraft have been weighed with uncalibrated scales for decades, and some aircraft empty weights may not be accurate. If the aircraft's empty weight is incorrect, when the aircraft is loaded to its maximum takeoff weight, it may actually be operating above its maximum takeoff weight. Add in other variables such as an uncalibrated airspeed indicator, and we are increasing our risk of accident. To this point, we have briefly discussed why weight and balance is important. Let's now get into the correct method of weighing the aircraft. Before you start, let's consider what we need. Have a hangar to weigh your aircraft in. The hangar must have a solid floor and doors that close to prevent the wind causing any inaccuracies. There should also be sufficient space to move the aircraft on and off the scales. Make sure you have the correct equipment. Calibrated scales to ensure correct reading, plumb bob and spirit level, chalk line and chalk, measuring tape, ramps, chocks, and perhaps pieces of timber to aid leveling. Make sure you have the appropriate recording documentation. This is available to download from the RA-Aus website under Forms. Ensure you have the manufacturer's manual for the required data such as reference datum position, leveling means for weighing, maximum takeoff weight, maximum baggage weights and their respective reaction arms, centre of gravity limits, usable and unusable fuel capacities, reaction arm for pilot and passengers. Aircraft must be weighed dry, with the flaps up, full engine oil, coolant, hydraulic fluid, unusable fuel, seats and canopy in the flight position. RA-Aus have purchased a set of calibrated scales for members' use free of charge. Members will, however, need to cover the cost of transportation to and from Canberra. These scales are battery operated, therefore do not require any electrical power supply. With version 4 of the RA-Aus technical manual, members can become weight and balance endorsees by completing the online weight and balance course. Weight and balance endorsees can weigh their own aircraft and supply RA-Aus with the weight and balance report. Before we start to measure, let's look at a diagram of the aircraft to be measured in order to establish the points we are going to record. The manufacturer has stated the reference datum is 70 inches, or 1,778 millimeters, forward of the wing leading edge. D2 is the distance between the center line of the nose wheel and the wing leading edge. D1 and D3 represent the distances between the center line of the left and right main wheels and the wing leading edge. The purpose of this presentation was not to cover everything, but to provide some awareness on weight and balance and to encourage members to complete the online weight and balance course. Thank you for watching this presentation from Recreational Aviation Australia.
So that's our weight and balance teaser again. There's a about 12 to 15 minute video in total for that. That'll be available with our CFI Hangar Talks again. And this is just an edited version. So that basically wraps up the majority of our safety summit today, and we're going to move into Q&A time. So if you've got any questions, you've got a lot of the management in the room as well. You'll need to make sure that you're talking to the mic so we can get the live feed going as well. But if you've got any questions of us, we're very fortunate to have Greg Hoodie here today from the ATSB, or any questions in regard to our relationship with the ATSB, please let us know, and we're happy to answer your questions for the next 20 minutes or so. Crickets.
So Jared just talked about the weight and balance course. When's that actual course going to be available? I know the new tech manual's out. When is the course available to our members?
I might hand that over to our tech team.
It's not going through. Oh, there we are. Maybe I just need to stand up. Yeah, we have finished the required documentation. That'll go off to CASA at the end of this month, and we'll be running that live to the members under beta testing. It's the same sort of process, which is what's already been approved by CASA for the SAAA. So it'll be rolling out, sometime very, very soon, in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Darren. Has anyone got any other questions? Yep, Don? Hang on, Jill's just coming.
It was mentioned earlier. Oh, sorry. The Jabiru accident that was mentioned earlier, which ATSB decided they would investigate with you, what's the deciding factor? Why to investigate, why not? And are there any details that were useful? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I might actually hand that over to Greg, because the ATSB usually make that decision and we take a backward step in that regard. So I'll let Greg answer that.
Sure, thanks for the question. So there's a series of risk factors. So there's a committee that meets every day at the ATSB and reviews all of the incidents and accidents for the previous 24 hours. In relation to the recent Jabiru accident, one of our booklets over there actually discusses some of the research that we did on the Jabiru, and I think that was published last year, and it quotes in one area that 1 in 10 engines are likely to fail. And it's been the subject, obviously, of discussions in the Senate and other areas. In this particular case, we hadn't investigated a recreational accident this year, and there's a couple of reasons for it. One is because our own research report said that potentially there's an issue with Jabiroos, and so ultimately I'm the decision maker. And I suppose the other area for me is that we haven't been to too many other fatalities this year, and I need to send my teams out regularly to aircraft accidents so that that they stay skilled at what they do. So we sent a team of 2 people to Yarram, and we're working with RA-Aus in this particular case for this accident. One of the documents that you get when you get these jobs is you get a ministerial statement of expectations. So the ministerial statement of expectations, which Warren Truss wrote for the ATSB, says that the majority of my resources are supposed to be devoted to the passenger carrying rail, marine and aviation accidents and incidents, and certainly that's where the majority of our attention is focused. But you know, the lower end of town, well, life is a life and just as important to us.
Thanks, Greg. And also, for information, if the ATSB actually investigates, sometimes they do a desktop investigation, we will link that investigation report online so that you've got easy access to it. So if you look up the date of that incident, you want to know more information. I know that there was an incident recently with a Morgan cheetah. So if you look it up, we actually will put the ATSB link there, so you just have to click on that link and it'll take you to that ATSB report. So we're always about sharing information with the ATSB. They've got these great reports with safety outcomes, and that's for the benefit of our members. Has anyone got any other questions? Spencer?
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. I'd like to ask a question of Greg. Greg, one of the problems of accident investigation by RA-Aus is, or some of the problems are the risks of defamation, the risk of trespass, and the risk of interfering with other people's assets, such as the wreck. You and ATSB don't have those problems because the statute strengthens them. Have you ever considered, or would you give consideration to being able to co-opt RA-Aus investigators and give them temporary powers to engage in investigations which you don't either have the resources for, or perhaps, dare I say it, don't have the background skills because of the nature of the aircraft and the crash? Is that a matter you could give consideration to?
Absolutely. So I could tell that Michael and Mick have been speaking to the Minister because the Minister spoke to me. So the Minister is encouraging me to look at ways in which we can further assist RA-Aus, and that's certainly one of them that we could discuss. It's the same as the aerial ag or aerial application sector. Phil Hurst, who's the CEO of the 4As, he's been on the record many times as saying he'd much rather have ATSB on a fatality in the aerial ag sector. Because, as he puts it, if the ATSB is there, the inspector plod is less empowered, if you like. So, yeah, I'll be more than happy to talk about that. We do second people from time to time and conduct those investigations under Section 32, under the Act. So, yeah, we could certainly look at that.
Thanks, Greg. I had a question up the front here.
David Ford from Esperance. You say that human factors are involved in 87% of the accidents, but in the last ops manual, the human factors endorsement was removed, and the human factors exam is no longer a separate exam. Is this effective?
Just to clarify, David, we haven't removed the human factors endorsement. We've actually added human factors questions to every subject in the theory requirements for the pilot certificate. The human factors exam is still a separate exam, which you can sit your students through as well. So no, we haven't removed the human factors focus at all. We might talk about that later, because you should have that exam. No.
That But now, because human factors is involved in, or questions are included in the other exams, that a separate human factors exam is no longer necessary for new students.
No, you don't have to get them to do the separate exam, but it's still available for those members who haven't completed it. But yes, if they complete all other subjects, they've completed the human factors component, and you still give them a human factors endorsement. Just a slightly different way of doing it.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Jill.
Part of what we're trying to do, Peter, is take a holistic approach. So rather than having human factors as a separate thing, it should be spread across the organisation, and that's part of the strategy in the Ops Manual. And we've got a lot of more work to do on the Ops Manual. I had chatted to the board this morning, and it's about a continuous improvement exercise. So anywhere we can, we improve, and then we review, and we go back and we improve again, and it's a constant improvement. But we really want human factors to be permeating the whole society, rather than just this thing saying, oh, I've done human factors, therefore I'm fine. Well, human factors permeates all aspects of flying. Any other questions?
Yep, there's one at the back.
Thank you. Thank you. Martin is my name. I'm a relatively new pilot and brand new member of RA-Aus. I spent a lot of time YouTubing training videos of every sort of kind and description. And in relation to the videos we watch here this afternoon, is that RA-Aus's intention to create more videos relating to navigation and radio and all of that sort of stuff that newbie pilots are Googling and finding online?
Yeah, sure. I might get Jill to answer as well. What we're intending to do, and the reason why we develop the videos, is that not everyone enjoys presenting. Like, I have to admit, it's not easy to get up and present in front of a group of people, and not all CFIs are happy to present. So that's why we came up with this approach. We're very fortunate. We've got Hayley. She's our learning and development coordinator, and she's got these amazing IT skills, and she's able to bring that together. I was going to say it in the sponsorship section, but our team has worked collectively to bring Safety Month together. It's not just about the safety department doing it. I'm very fortunate I now have a safety coordinator, Janelle, in the office to help me. But I would not have been able to bring this together and give this presentation if it wasn't for the ops team giving the information to Hayley, and also our tech team with the weight and balance. We've got our communication and marketing person in the office, safety coordinator. We did a massive mail out, 160 packages with all the safety promotion material around you to our CFIs. The safety booklet we've organised. That, I have not done that on my own. I've done that holistically with our whole team. And I think that sort of gives you an idea of where we'd like to go with the organisation. We think the videos are good. We think that they will work for our greater membership because they're easy to watch. We need your feedback and the evaluation from you, our members, whether it's working or not. And we won't be able to improve this safety promotion unless you give us this feedback. If you've got a great idea, let us know, because I tell you what, I'm not a creative. I'm like a bit of a boring paper person. So, you know, give me those creative ideas. And you all work in different industries as well. So if you've got an idea that works in your industry, we'd love to hear from it. And that's the whole idea we're thinking with the continuous improvement. We'll engage in different ways. And as you can see, we've moved away from just Sport Pilot to our e-news. We have Facebook, we have YouTube. So we're trying to create that. And I'll pass over to Jill because she's got more of the ops sort of focus with the training, but she'll be able to tell you where they're going to go.
Thanks, Katie. Welcome, Martin, to the organisation. We certainly intend to expand the range of videos. I don't know that we'll go drill down to that level of teaching particular subjects necessarily, because we want that privilege to be done by our CFIs. But having said that, there are some particular areas that we're looking at as a result of Katie's analysis. And just some ideas we've been spitballing around has been circuit radio procedures, standardisation of those procedures. So if you've got ideas, let us know. We'll try and fit them in as best we can, bearing in mind there's not many of us. So we'll do the best we can, but we certainly want to expand that range, definitely. There's a lot of value, I think, in what we're doing there. Oh, there's another one that we're working on at the moment, how to do a pre-flight on the aircraft. Now that's an interesting topic because a pre-flight on an aircraft might take you 10 to 15 minutes. The video so far is an hour long. So we must just talk too much, but I think that's an indication of what we're doing, that the depth that we're trying to get to. We'll break that video up into some slightly smaller chunks, I think, for people to watch.
Thanks, Jill. We're probably only got time for one more with the AGM coming up. So if there are any more questions? No? Happy with that? Okay, we're just going to move on. I'm going to quickly say a few words about our sponsors, and then I'm going to hand over to Michael. We would not have National Safety Month this year if it wasn't for our new insurance broker, QBE. QBE gave us a great donation towards our sponsorship, which is the reason we can give out our booklet this year. So without that sponsorship, we wouldn't have been able to give you that information out to every single member. I put the Australian Red Cross up there because another safety initiative we came up with was actually getting our members trained in first aid. We had several serious accidents last year where if it wasn't for that first aid, first responder on the scene, the individual involved in that accident would have been a lot worse off. And in a couple of cases, a couple of lives were saved. So we know the importance of that first aid training. We've liaised and we've just created a memorandum of understanding with Red Cross, and they're going to give us a discount for training if you're a member RA-Aus. So that's on our National Safety Month pages on the website. Also, we've got close liaison with AMSA, so you'll see information about distress beacons. They do all the search and rescue. We've got a great relationship, and thanks to them and their information they give us for our magazine, we actually have less issues with our distress beacons and registration. One of our fact sheets in the knowledge base is about how to register your beacon, your PLB or your ELT. So have a look at that. Also, ATSB, always involved with us. They give us information. They really appreciate Greg Hood coming out today and launching our National Safety Month. And without their liaison, we wouldn't have come up with some of the transparency and the ideas that they've created with their online reporting and data. And finally, CASA. CASA Safety Promotions is a fantastic section of CASA, and they're always willing. They've created some great information that we're going to send out in the next 6 months, and we're constantly liaising. And it's interesting to see that their information they want to roll out is very similar to what we're rolling out. So we're starting to partner up a bit more. They've got a bigger bucket of money, and we can work together to make sure that we get that information to you. And finally, I'm going to hand over to Michael, and he's just going to say a few final words.
Thank you, Katie. We just got one more thing before we wrap up, but before we move into that, these seminars like this is an idea that Kim had, actually. Kim, our communications officer, had, and said, we should have a safety summit. We get all these opportunities, we get members together, why don't we have a safety summit? And that was, born, and the effort that everybody, the whole team has put in bringing this together has been fantastic. As Katie said, it's not a one-person show, RLs. We're a small team and very hard-working team. So just introducing, for those that you don't know who are here, we've got Darren, most people should know, sitting over the back there, answered a question. Jill's over there somewhere. Up there, I can't see, you know me. Oh, there you are. Jared's somewhere here as well. There's Jared, Assistant Tech Manager, doing a fantastic job. Very heavily involved in our maximum takeoff stuff. So if we've got some questions later on, chat to Jared. We've got Maxine here. Often the unsung hero. The office runs smoothly because of Maxine. Human resources, administration, paying the bills, all that boring stuff that people hate. But without that stuff, the business doesn't run. And Maxine is tremendously supportive of the team and works with the team to make sure days like today happen. The accommodation, getting the cars organised, all that stuff that happens in the background that you just think happens, there's somebody doing that, and she does a fantastic job. Hayley on the AV has done a fantastic job. We used to pay a lot of money to get the AV in. We used to buy it out of house, but Hayley joined us as a learning and development officer and said, I've got all these skills, don't pay for it, buy me a computer and a video camera and I'll do it. So we bought her a computer and a video camera for about a third of the cost of getting the other IT guys out here, and she's here, giving up weekend time. 2 kids at home, Darren's got a daughter at home, Maxine's got a couple of kids, Jared's working on it, I think, so yeah. I'll see him soon. And of course, my assistant, Kelly. These weekends aren't possible without Kelly, She's fantastic. And Neil's here as well. Sorry, Neil. Neil's there. Neil's fantastic as well. A lot of the work on that. We spent a whole day in Caboolture shooting the runway loss of control videos. Neil, you probably did 30 or 40 touch and goes that day. I think it was a long day, but we really got some great stuff out of it. It was a fantastic day. and Kelly, as I said, and of course Katie, who's brought it all together and delivered today. So I'd like everybody to give them a round of applause because they've done a fantastic effort. And Mick, our chairman, has done a great job. He's come into the office, he's got some fantastic AV skills. He's helped Haley, he's helped me, he's helped us all with some great skills, and some of the images in here are images that Mick's taken as well, so really handy on the back end of a camera, which is great, and really supportive of what we're trying to achieve as an organisation. He just winds us up and off we go and deliver this stuff. So fantastic. So one more thing. QBE, fantastic. We've announced in the magazine this month a 2-page spread on QBE. We've moved away from Willis. I'm not going to say anything about why we moved away. We did. We're now with QBE and PSB. The relationship and the opportunities for members are going to be fantastic. And I think the relationship with Matt Hall is going to really demonstrate that. And we did a little bit of work with Matt Hall, top secret work with Matt Hall, and we're very pleased to present today just a fantastic piece of vision for you to enjoy that we're going to launch on YouTube and spread far and wide over the next 6 months. Check this out.
Hi, I'm Matt Hall. I am a member of RA-Aus, and I started my aviation career flying RA-Aus type aircraft just like you. Once I got my initial rating, it didn't stop there. A lot of hard work, training, dedication, study continued to develop me as a pilot to where I am now, with still more room to move. In fact, I've never stopped learning in aviation, and I hope to continue learning in aviation up until the time I stop. Now, RA-Aus is all about safe, accessible, fun, and educational flying out in our great environment. Now, I spend a lot of time talking to people about airmanship, and when I had to dig down into what airmanship means to me, it's a lifelong process. For me, airmanship started when I was a kid, flying these types of aircraft with my dad and gaining experience and always thinking about what's coming up. That's the long-range preparation. We then, only then, plan for a particular mission, engage routine leading into the flight, and then once we're on the flight itself, we make sure we're in the correct mindset to stay focused and kind of looking for what's going to go wrong. Now, this push for airmanship that we've been involved in, it's actually one of the things that's leading RA-Aus to introduce their concept of clear mind, clear prop. The clear mind, clear prop principle is all about making sure that not only is your aircraft ready to be flown safely, so is your mind. Your mind is clear of emotional distractions. It's clear of worrying about finances back home. It's clear about worrying about what the boss has said to you or you've got to do tomorrow. It's about focusing on the flight right now. Now, many people start to think after a number of hours without an incident that accidents and incidents happen to the other person and never to them. Unfortunately, the pilots that tend to believe this and live by this principle are the ones that are actually going to start taking more and more risk, which can ultimately lead to a much worse incident or accident than having the mindset that it can happen to you. But as you saw from my incident in the Red Bull Air Race, events do occur to people. At RA-Aus, we want to make sure that people are willing to talk about their incidents like mine, so that other people can learn from those incidents, other people can benefit, and we can reduce the chances of those incidents happening again. RA-Aus operates a fair and open reporting policy. We want to make sure that members feel safe to report an incident and not be worried about repercussions of punishment or judgment. So what RA-Aus want to do is they want to encourage pilots to talk about their incidents like I'm doing now. It helps the individual learn, but it helps the wider community. We allow people to learn from other people's mistakes and reduce the chances of that incident happening again. At RA-Aus, if something goes wrong, tell us about it. We've actually even made it easier for you. Check out our new occurrence management system online. And at RA-Aus, we also publish lessons learned on our website. This is a great tool to keep learning because it allows you to pull lessons and experiences from other less fortunate individuals to help you not make the same mistake. RA-Aus, clear mind, clear problem.
So fantastic relationship there that we've developed with Matt Hall, QBE and RA-Aus. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. As I said, that's going to be Let's Launch today. It's the first time you're the first people to see that, plus the 50,000 people dialed in on the internet today. So thank you to our online audience and thank you to everyone attending today. It's been a fantastic inaugural safety seminar. We'll go back, review it. Love to hear your feedback, whether we do it again. I think it's important enough for us to do again, and I don't think we can stop the conversation today. Let's keep the conversation going. We'll see you in about half an hour. Perfect timing. We'll see you in about half an hour for the annual general meeting, which will be in this room. The cafe's open. Please go and enjoy some afternoon tea up there or coffee or something. And we'll start our AGM at promptly 4 p.m. this afternoon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.